Pro Group Management. Workers' comp that works for you.
Welcome to Nevada Newsmakers. On the broadcast today, we're going to talk with Anna Colquitt. She's Director of Education Policy at the Guinn Center. She's here for the whole show on an all-new Nevada Newsmakers.
Welcome to the Ahern Boutique Hotel, where luxury and warmth come together in the heart of Las Vegas.
We take pride in offering a one-of-a-kind experience for both locals and tourists.
Join us for handcrafted cocktails and an unforgettable experience.
Joel's Chop House, the perfect place to savor views of the Las Vegas Strip.
Satisfy your cravings at the Ahern Chocolate Shop.
No smoking, no resort fees, and the parking is always free. The Ahern Luxury Boutique Hotel is your home away from home.
Welcome to the Winnemucca Big R.
Hi, I'm John Walker. Welcome to Big R Lovelock.
Hi, I'm Rich Martin. Welcome to Fallon Big R.
My name is Braden. Welcome to Big R Fernley.
Hi, I'm Kelly. Welcome to Big R Sparks.
The Nevada Builders Alliance has been protecting the interests of the construction industry for over 50 years. Our programs save members thousands of dollars every year and allow them to provide much-needed benefits to their employees. Our industry also allows Nevada to grow. If you're thinking about a career in the construction industry, reach out. And if you haven't thought of a career in construction, what are you waiting for? We are the Nevada Builders Alliance.
Early in the morning or throughout the night, professional truck drivers are on the job, serving you, safely moving freight that's crucial to our economy. From the oldest industries to our newest innovators, from the exotic to the everyday, trucks are everywhere, moving everything. Never afraid to embrace a future that makes Nevada and our nation stronger. Trucking moves America forward.
This is Nevada Newsmakers with host Sam Shad on No Holds Barred Political Forum. Now, from the Nevada Newsmakers broadcast headquarters, here is Sam Shad.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we're delighted to welcome to the program for the first time Anna Colquitt. She is Director of Education Policy for the Guinn Center. Pleasure to have you here.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. So education, we gave a huge amount of money in the last cycle to education, well over $2 billion. But every time I talk to people in the education field or in the legislative field, they tell me it's not enough. Why is it not enough?
Great question. So yes, the $2.6 billion investment was huge for education, especially for teacher salaries and for making sure that our teachers are more adequately paid. I will not say that they are adequately paid, but more so. But what it comes down to is we are still massively underfunded for education. And when we look at national averages, our per pupil spending amount is about $17,000. Ours in Nevada is about $13,000. So that $4,000 gap is felt by our students, by our schools, by our administrators, and is something that we're constantly talking about in the state of how can we close that gap.
When I talk to legislators and say, how much more do we need? It seems like the answer is always the same. Well, at least another $1 billion. Is that reality?
So those numbers are being discussed. The Commission on School Funding is kind of tackling what are those amounts? How can we get there in the next 10, 15, 20 years? However, I think when we look at the expert recommendation right now for per pupil spending is about $17,000, a little over $17,000. We are, as I said, at 13. So when we talk about what those amounts are, that is just to the expert recommendation for adequacy. That is not the expert recommendation for, successful and fulfilling funding. That's adequate funding. So I think those numbers can be interesting because it's also what we do with that money that can be the most impactful.
Exactly. And so that brings us to, discussing the amount. So It's the amount of money versus what the results are. And how do you, in your research, and let's point out the Guinn Center is a nonpartisan organization. You're providing information to the legislators and to other interests so that they can make their own decisions. You're not advocating for any particular position. But the difference between how much we spend versus the results, how do you balance that out in your research?
Great question. So we just finalized a study on the pupil-centered funding plan, and we did make preliminary connections between funding and then achievement and that performance piece of it. We had a lot of disclaimers in there because personally, I think that it is quite problematic to link funding too closely to performance this early in implementation. And in addition to that, in general, performance, there are many factors that contribute to a student's performance or a school's performance. And so to align that too closely to funding without considering all of those community factors, individual student factors, all of those things, in addition to funding, it's quite problematic. So what we did is we looked at those funding analytics and analyzed that, and then we took the performance metrics. And I want to spend just a second on this because I think that when we talk about performance, most people and most studies go straight to the SBAC, all of our kind of standardized tests or SAT scores or graduation rates or some of just kind of our standardized metrics. What about all of the other things that contribute to performance? What do we actually want our students to leave, say, high school, knowing and being able to competently do to either go into college, go into the workforce, whatever it might be? What do we need them to do? And then how are we measuring those things and considering that performance? And so I think that's something that we considered heavily in our research and kind of alluded to several times for future research is how can we think more broadly about performance and link funding to that so that we're measuring achievement in a more accurate way.
One of the things that comes up a lot these days is the ability for a kid to leave high school being able to read, being able to write, and to a lesser extent, but not less important, to do math. How does that play into your research?
Yeah, great question. So I think those are the things that are captured pretty well in our standardized tests right now. We have that piece down pretty solid. What's unfortunate is that our proficiency rates are pretty low. So kids aren't able to do those things proficiently, we're seeing from our standardized tests. But I think the story doesn't end there, and that's the key piece. So when we talk about the workforce, it's changing rapidly with the advancements in technology, with AI. The skills that students needed upon high school graduation a few years ago, even 5 years ago, the skills they needed are different than what they need today. And so how are we accounting for their proficiency in those things that will benefit them in our economy, in our workforce, and in college as well, and in their life in general? Outside of kind of the economic piece of it.
All right, so, it's a long time ago now, but when I was a kid growing up, you thought of education in terms of a liberal arts education. You got to learn a broad swath of things. It wasn't directed at what your career was going to be necessarily. It was to give you a taste of all these different things that were both practical as well as cultural. We seem to have gotten away from that. Am I right in saying that we're now more focused on these are the jobs that are available, therefore we should train you from grade school all the way through to going into one of these professions? Is that accurate or inaccurate?
I think of it slightly different. I think instead of thinking about what is the job and train a student up for the job, I think we have become focused on standardization in the sense of these are the metrics that we are using to determine success in some way, and that's determined by a standardized test. And so therefore our education is training them up to be successful in that because that's what we're using to measure success. What I think what you're talking about of kind of looking at these paths and and guiding students in those directions is being done. I mean, we have career and technology, and we have, our CTE programs that do we have these set paths, and they have courses that do align with those career paths. And I think those are beneficial from the student perspective because they're able to see these are the skills that I need for this job that I want. And they're making the connections between their education and the workforce or what's happening outside of that school building. However, the other side of that is for the students, which I think you're alluding to, that don't know exactly what they want to do when they leave that school building for their career. And therefore, what does their education look like? And I think that's where we're missing a lot of kind of the holistic approaches to education, in the sense of making sure that their skill development is not just math, science, and reading, which are all critical skills. This isn't undermining those skills. It is saying there is more that we need for our workforce than just those skills. And critical thinking, problem solving, communication, all of those skills, how are we capturing those inside of the classroom?
Yeah, and as you were saying that, critical thinking, was one of the first things that popped into my head. Because a lot of kids, I mean, let's face it, when they're in school, especially in the early years, they have no idea.
Right.
They want to be a fireman or a nurse or, whatever. They're not really on a career path. And I think part of education is the idea of opening up the world to somebody.
Yes.
Not just,
Closing it in.
Here's the job that you're going to be doing later on, and that is the best fit. One of the things that I've noticed in projects that we've done with Nevada Newsmakers over the years has involved inviting schools to be a part of the program. And the thing that impressed me was the applications we got from these CTE schools. They are just above and beyond.
Yes.
I mean, what is it that they are doing that other schools should be emulating?
Oh, great question. So we published research earlier this summer on career and technical education programs, and so our CTE programs, and connecting those standards to the workforce. So we looked at CTE programs, looked at their standards. We looked at what are the highest desired skills from all of our employers from all different realms, not just, CTE traditional programs such as culinary. That's like one of the highest enrolled industries for CTE programs. But we looked at all areas and said, what do employers want? How do these skills align to the skills that employers are saying that they desire? And when we looked at that, the biggest thing with the highest enrolled industries in CTE programs and the highest employed industries in our workforce was that they involve working very closely with people. So it is those people skills that are critical that we are integrating into the classroom. What's interesting is those standards that I'm talking about for CTE, those do not exist in our Nevada academic content standards, which shape our curricula for K-12. They don't exist in those standards. However, they could be integrated into the standards that we see for all students, but they are unique for CTE students. And so one of our policy recommendations was thinking about how can we look beyond, just CTE programs for these standards and think about, all students developing these skills. It is not just our CTE students that are going on to the workforce.
Right.
It's quite contrary. So thinking about how can we make sure that all students graduate from high school having those communications, those problem solving, all of those types of skills.
Let's take a break. We'll come back much more with Anna Colquitt from the Guinn Center after this timeout.
Pro Group Management offers workers' comp services to a growing number of industries. As businesses grow and change with the times, the need for a solid workers' comp program must be flexible and up to date. The evolving nature of regulations can make staying ahead of complex tasks challenging. But Pro Group Management simplifies the work so your industry can move forward and succeed. Pro Group Management, workers' comp that works for you.
Like a traditional handmade basket, retail is woven into the fabric of life in Nevada. From big box to mom and pop, retail supports our communities in countless ways. Jobs for the disabled, team uniforms for kids, help for the elderly, and so much more. Retail employs over 1 in 10 workers. Retail supports Nevada, and we support retail.
RANNV.org.
Story County is leading Nevada. Home of the Tahoe Reno Industrial Center, Google, Tesla, Panasonic, and other world-leading companies. Story County provides thousands of tech, advanced manufacturing, and logistics careers for Nevadans. We're diversifying and driving Nevada's economy and generating millions in tax revenue and billions in economic activity across northern Nevada. Story County is leading Nevada's future.
As you know, Reno is booming. Toll's development company is helping it grow with insightful design and development, building community with every project, adding beauty, adding excitement, emphasizing our shared humanity. Reno is becoming bigger. Toll's development is helping it become better, more livable, more enjoyable. To learn more, go to tollsdevelopment.com. tollsdevelopment.com.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Anna Colquitt. She is Director of Education Policy at the nonpartisan Guinn Center. You were talking about communication skills. There are a lot of people, perhaps mistakenly, that think that because of texting and the way that younger people communicate today, that they don't have the people skills, the in-person people skills. Do you find that to be true, or is that really baloney?
I like this. I think it provides the opportunity for us to, one, look at what are communication skills, because they might be different today than how we thought of them before, potentially, and maybe in the new ways of communicating, our younger population actually are really strong at these new ways of communicating. But when we think about from a workforce perspective in our research, we looked at communication repeatedly comes up as one of the top 5 skills, usually number 1, but in the top 5 skills across all industries. And when employers are talking about communication, they typically are talking about written, verbal, and nonverbal communication and the ability to connect with people, which also kind of plays into that emotional intelligence piece of it, which is another it lands commonly high up on that list. And those pieces of communication, I think, have ties into how, our newer generation communicates, but I think those skills are different, and education is kind of the opportunity to develop those skills in a safe way, try it out, make mistakes. Maybe you didn't send the most professional email, but this is kind of our place to learn how to do that. So communication is always at the top of those lists.
Well, there's an irony because, with texting, the communication skills are very developed from a very young age, but then you translate that just into perhaps email, which has replaced letter writing. And suddenly there's a great deal of difficulty transitioning from one to the other because you don't use the full form in those areas.
And I also wonder how much AI will impact a lot of these communication practices. We're looking at AI in a lot of areas at the Guinn Center, but education is one of them. And we're currently working on a brief on AI in higher education. But after that, we'll be working on AI in education more broadly. And one of the things that we repeatedly see in AI is how helpful it can be for some of those communication tools, and really thinking about, professionalizing, emails or not in-person conversations, because we're not there yet. Who knows? Maybe we will be. But figuring out how to utilize those tools for our younger generation could be incredibly helpful in an education setting.
One of the things that struck me recently about AI is that, years ago, when calculators first came into being, and we're going back a long ways, but but teachers were very against calculators in the classroom. You need to do the math. Today, you can't even imagine not using your calculator to do math. And with AI, it seems to me that it's a very useful tool, but you really need to be very careful about editing what is coming back to you. What are you seeing in that realm?
Yes. So what's kind of fun about this is I taught for a few years at UNLV, and through that experience, we had a lot of conversations about AI and appropriate uses, because it is a very powerful tool. And in my opinion, the more we keep it out of the classroom, the more we're setting up these students for failure in their futures, because they need to know how to use it. That is the world that we live in now. And by, having them just fully experiment on their own and not in a, guided way, I think is problematic. And so we had a lot of those conversations of how can we use AI ethically? How can we, use it as a tool without replacing the skills that we have developed? And so I think that's the conversation that needs to continue to happen in education, is especially at a young age, how can we still make sure those tools are developed within students? So we don't want AI to replace skill development. We still want students to be able to think critically, to ask the questions, and to know how to develop an email, and write that professionally. But at the same time, how can we make sure that we are training them to utilize AI, because it can help with efficiency in a lot of areas that would benefit them in their future. So I think it's actually a really exciting opportunity to introduce it, use it, try it out, make mistakes, enjoy it, and figure out how it can benefit them.
Do you find that teachers are well versed in this enough to be able to be the aid that is needed? Great question. I think professional development is always something that can be improved, and making sure that we have a solid approach on how to integrate AI into the classroom. I think there are a lot of viewpoints on AI right now, just like the calculator example and like the internet example, and all of those that are being talked about right now, as they should be, because it's a scary new thing. I get that. There's a lot of differing opinions, but I do think the more we continue to talk about the fact that this is the world we live in, how can we use this as a tool to help students and help them in their futures, rather than be so fearful that we're not, incorporating it at all into the classroom. All right, let's take another break. We'll be right back after this timeout.
What do you count on? You count on your power every day. At NV Energy, we've always powered what's important to you, but we're not looking at the past. We're focused on the future. While our standards are high, our rates will remain low. And our commitment to renewables isn't just meeting standards, but leading the way. Because you can count on more than just your power. You can count on the company who brings it to you. That's our promise. You can count on it.
Fantastic cocktails and delicious food.
It's a good time to eat.
Over 500 hot slots, plus electronic table games.
It's a good time to play.
Player rewards and big-time jackpots.
It's a good time to win.
Ooh, your good time's a tamarack.
Southwest Specialties has been making the homes and businesses of Nevada beautiful for more than 20 years. Their experienced designers and craftsmen create the walkways, backyards, water features, and a variety of outdoor cooking areas that add curb appeal and value to your investment. Call today or visit them at their website and see how they can make your outdoor spaces special. Southwest Specialties, creative, distinctive, beautiful.
This is Nevada Newsmakers.
And back on Nevada Newsmakers, we continue our conversation with Anna Colquitt. She is Director of Education Policy at the Guinn Center. One of the things that one of the legislators who was on the program recently was talking about was the amount of testing that goes on in the classroom and how she feels that that takes away from the ability for teachers to actually teach rather than going through endless testing. What has your research shown there?
Yeah, so although we have not studied this area specifically, I think there is, when we interviewed teachers actually about school funding, school administrators on school funding, we learned very quickly that the burden on teachers is heavy. And we all know this, we hear it. And what we heard repeatedly is that the post-COVID burden on teachers, students, families is very heavy. And figuring out how to manage that is has become very difficult on schools and teachers. And so I think in regards to testing, I am not surprised that given the amount that is on their plate, that would become, an added burden for them.
And that's where we have to leave it. I look forward to seeing you in Carson City because I know you're going to be helping the legislature during the course of the session. So look forward to that. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And we appreciate you, and we'll be right back.
Save money and take transit. Did you know you can ride the bus all day for less than what it would cost you for a gallon of gas? Plan your trip now by going to rtcwashoe.com.
For 50 years, Nevada Heating has been keeping people comfortable in their homes. At Nevada Heating, call the Do It Right guys and get the air conditioning back on today. That's the Nevada Heating way. Why sweat for days on end when Nevada Heating can get your air conditioning fixed today? Call us today and we'll fix it today at 323-5585 or schedule us on our website at nevadaheating.com.
We wouldn't steer you wrong with the gold standard of steaks at Joel's Chop House. Indulge in dry-aged steaks, seafood, Wagyu tomahawks, located on the second floor, and great views of the Strip.
Imagine a magical garden that feeds Carson City's hungry and homeless, teaches our high school students agriculture, creates hanging floral displays to beautify downtown, and yet charges nothing. It's not magic. It's the Greenhouse Project. It's real, it's growing, and it needs your help. Go online to carsоncitygreenhouse.org so together we can grow it forward.
Here on 7 at 7, we're bringing you the local headlines in just 7 minutes.
We've got you covered in the morning, evening, and for all breaking news, in between, and as it happens.
Life is busy, and we don't waste your time. Join us for local news now streaming on our YouTube page.
As always, you can watch Nevada Newsmakers 24 hours a day on various platforms, including television, radio, our website, audio and video podcasts, YouTube. If you want to find the show, you can find it pretty darn easily. And we cover politics, business, health, and education. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next broadcast.